The security footage was crystal clear. My wife, Sarah, in our bedroom with my coworker, Marcus, at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. What they didn't know was that I'd installed that camera system 6 months ago for a completely different reason. My name is John Sylvester, 38 years old, senior IT security analyst at Meridian Financial. And what happened next, neither of them saw coming. I was sitting in my Honda Civic in the parking lot of Chicago O'Hare, flight delayed by 3 hours due to storms. The cybersecurity conference had ended early anyway, so I decided to catch the earlier flight home. That's when the motion alert pinged on my phone. Our home security system, the one I'd meticulously installed after a string of neighborhood break-ins last winter, was sending me notifications. 2 cars in our driveway, Sarah's white Toyota Camry and a blue Ford Explorer I recognized immediately. Marcus Chun, junior analyst in my department, 29 years old, Stanford graduate, been with Meridian Financial for 18 months. Smart kid, eager to learn, always asking me questions about network security protocols. I'd been mentoring him, showing him the ropes, thinking he had real potential. We'd worked late together dozens of times, grabbed beers after particularly tough system implementations. I trusted him with administrative passwords, gave him access to sensitive client databases, even recommended him for the promotion he got last month. I opened the security app and switched to the interior cameras. My hands were steady as I scrolled through the feeds. Living room, empty. Kitchen, 2 coffee cups on the counter, Sarah's favorite mugs. Hallway, women's jacket thrown over the chair, one I bought her for Christmas. Then I switched to the bedroom feed. That's when my world tilted sideways. They were on our bed. The bed Sarah and I had picked out together 3 years ago. The one we'd spent hours assembling, because I insisted we could do it ourselves instead of paying for delivery setup. The sheets were the blue ones from our wedding registry. The expensive Egyptian cotton ones Sarah said were an investment in our future comfort. Marcus was wearing the Meridian polo shirt from our company picnic last month, the one where he'd chatted with Sarah by the barbecue grill while I was playing volleyball with the other IT guys. I didn't feel anger, not immediately. What I felt was something colder, more analytical. The same feeling I got when I discovered security breach in our network systems. Problem identified. Damage assessment required. Response protocol needed. I screenshotted the timestamp, 2:47 p.m., Tuesday, October 15th. Then I started recording video directly to my encrypted personal drive, the same setup I use for documenting security incidents at work. My phone rang. Sarah's name on the screen, her contact photo showing that bright smile from our anniversary dinner last month. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, she called again. This time I answered. "Hey, honey." Her voice was slightly breathless. "How's the conference going?" "Good," I said, watching her on my phone screen as she stood in our kitchen, hair messed up, adjusting her blouse. "Learning a lot about new threat vectors." "That's great, babe. Listen, I'm running late for my yoga class. Traffic's been crazy today. I'll probably grab dinner with the girls afterward, so don't wait up when you get home tomorrow, okay?" Yoga class. I could see Marcus in the background of the kitchen feed, checking his phone. He was supposed to be home sick today. Had called in that morning with what he told our supervisor was food poisoning from bad sushi. Poor guy. Our boss, Derek, had said in the team meeting, "These things happen. Sure, no problem. Have fun at yoga. Love you. Love you too. Safe travels." She hung up. I watched her walk back toward the bedroom, where Marcus was pulling on his shoes. They exchanged words I couldn't hear, then laughed about something. Sarah touched his arm, the same way she used to touch mine when we first started dating 12 years ago. I sat in that airport parking lot for another 20 minutes, methodically downloading the footage and organizing it into encrypted folders. 6 months of security camera data, automatically backed up to my personal cloud storage. I'd installed the system after the Henderson's 2 streets got burglarized while they were at work. Sarah had been paranoid about home security ever since, asking me to set up cameras just in case. I'd gone overboard, as usual. 12 cameras covering every angle of our property, interior and exterior, with motion detection and cloud backup. all perfectly legal since it was our house, and I'd informed Sarah about every camera location. Well, almost every location. As I organized the files, patterns started emerging. This wasn't their first time. I pulled up the footage from last Tuesday. Same time. There they were again. The Tuesday before that. Empty house, no alerts. But the Thursday 2 weeks ago, when I'd been in Denver for a security audit. Motion alerts at 1:30 p.m. Marcus's Explorer in the driveway. Interior footage showing them in our living room, on our couch, drinking wine from the bottle I'd been saving for our anniversary. My phone buzzed with text from Marcus. Feeling better today. Should be good for tomorrow's system update. Thanks for covering the Johnson account review. I replied, no problem. Rest up. The flight finally boarded at 7:30 p.m. I spent the 2-hour flight reviewing security protocols, not for our corporate network, but for my personal situation. In cybersecurity, we have something called the NIST framework. Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. I'd already identified and detected the threat. Now I needed to protect my assets and plan my response. I pulled out my notebook, the same leather-bound one I use for security assessments, and started making lists. Joint bank accounts, $127,000 in savings, $8,000 in checking. House, bought 3 years ago, both names on deed, but I put down the entire down payment for my inheritance when my father died. Retirement accounts. Mine were individual accounts. Hers were through her marketing agency. Life insurance policies, $500,000 each, mutual beneficiaries. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then I started thinking about Marcus's access at work. As a junior analyst, he had elevated privileges I'd personally vouched for. Database access for client files, network monitoring tools, even administrative rights on certain systems. He'd earned those privileges through good work and my mentorship. But elevated access also meant elevated responsibility. Corporate policy was crystal clear about using company resources for personal matters. Accessing systems outside of work hours required logging and justification. Using company devices for non-business communications was grounds for immediate termination. I opened my laptop and connected to Meridian's VPN. Standard security check. Nothing unusual about it. I accessed the audit log from Marcus's user account, something I did regularly for all junior staff as part of my security oversight responsibilities. His login patterns were interesting. Last Tuesday, he'd accessed the client database at 11:47 a.m., downloaded several files, then logged off at 12:15 p.m. Sick day, but working from home? That required supervisor approval and IT ticket documentation. I checked the system. No tickets, no approval. But that wasn't the concerning part. The concerning part was what files he'd accessed. Blackstone Industries account, Morrison Financial Group, Henderson and Associates, all clients of Meridian Financial, but not accounts Marcus normally worked on. He was assigned to smaller regional clients, not our major corporate accounts. I cross-referenced the access logs with his official project assignments. No legitimate business reason for accessing those files. I made another note in my security log, then checked something else. Sarah's LinkedIn profile. Her marketing agency, Creative Solutions Group, was small but growing. I scrolled through their recent posts, looking for new client announcements. There was posted 3 weeks ago. Excited to welcome Henderson and Associates to the Creative Solutions family. Looking forward to developing innovative marketing strategies for their expanding financial services division. Henderson and Associates. The same client whose files Marcus had accessed without authorization last Tuesday. The same Tuesday he was supposedly homesick with food poisoning. The same Tuesday the security cameras showed him leaving our house at 4:15 p.m. I closed the laptop and stared out the airplane window at the lights below. This wasn't just about adultery anymore. This was about corporate espionage. Sarah's agency landing a major client right after Marcus accessed their competitors' confidential files. Confidential files that included client lists, pricing strategies, marketing budgets, everything a competing agency would need to undercut a bid or steal accounts. The pieces were falling into place with the same logical precision I used to trace security breaches. The affair had started around 4 months ago, based on the camera footage patterns. Sarah's agency had landed 3 new clients in the past 4 months, all of them companies that Marcus had file access to through his elevated privileges at Meridian. Companies whose information he could access, copy, and pass along to Sarah's agency to help them craft winning proposals. By the time we started our descent into Columbus, I had a different kind of checklist in my notebook. This wasn't just about a cheating wife and a backstabbing coworker anymore. This was about a systematic breach of corporate security, theft of proprietary client information, and potential violations of multiple federal laws regarding financial data protection. I caught a cab home instead of calling Sarah for a pickup. She thought I was coming home tomorrow anyway, so my early arrival would be a surprise. I sat in the back seat, watching familiar neighborhood streets pass by, thinking about how different everything looked when you knew the truth. The house where the Johnsons lived, whose account Marcus had accessed without authorization. The corner where Sarah claimed to have car trouble last month, the same day Marcus logged into our network from an unusual IP address. Even the coffee shop where Sarah said she'd been meeting her book club, which happened to be 3 blocks from Marcus's apartment complex. We pulled into my driveway at 10:30 p.m. Sarah's car was there, Marcus's wasn't. The lights were on in our kitchen and living room. Through the front window, I could see Sarah on the couch watching Netflix, wearing the old college sweatshirt she always put on when she was relaxing alone. She looked comfortable, content, normal. If I didn't know what I knew, I'd be walking in there right now to surprise her with my early return. Maybe ordering takeout from that Thai place she liked, settling in for a quiet evening together. Instead, I paid the cab driver and sat on our front porch steps for a few minutes, looking at my house. Our house. The place where we planned to raise kids someday, where we'd hosted Thanksgiving dinners for both our families, where we'd painted walls together and argued about furniture placement and laughed about our terrible first attempts at gardening. The place where my wife had been sleeping with my coworker while I was out of town, working to build a career that paid for everything. I pulled out my phone and opened the security app one more time. Sarah was still on the couch, but now she was texting someone. Rapid-fire messages, the kind of back and forth you have when you're excited about something or nervous about something. I switched to the camera that covered our front door and watched myself sitting on our porch, a man outside his own house, planning his next move. In cybersecurity, we call it threat modeling. You identify all the ways an attack could happen, then you build defenses accordingly. But sometimes the threat comes from inside the network. Someone with legitimate access who decides to abuse that trust. Someone who knows your passwords, your routines, your vulnerabilities. Someone who can cause maximum damage precisely because you never suspected them. I stood up, shouldered my travel bag, and walked to my front door. Time to find out exactly how deep the security breach went. The house was warm and smelled like the vanilla candles Sarah liked to burn in the evenings. Music was playing softly from the kitchen speaker, some indie playlist she discovered on Spotify. Normal domestic life, the kind of scene I'd come home to hundreds of times before. Sarah looked up as I walked into the living room, her face lighting up with genuine surprise. "John, you're home early. I thought your flight wasn't until tomorrow morning." She jumped up from the couch and hugged me, the same enthusiastic greeting she always gave when I returned from business trips. Her hair smelled like her usual shampoo. Her skin felt familiar under the soft cotton of her sweatshirt. For a moment, muscle memory kicked in, and I almost hugged her back the way I always did. Almost. Conference ended early, caught a standby flight. I said, setting my bag down by the door. Thought I'd surprise you. "Well, you definitely succeeded," she laughed, stepping back to look at me. "You look tired. Long day." "Yeah, lots of sessions on emerging threats. You know how it is." I watched her face as I said it, looking for any tells, any signs that she understood the irony. Nothing, just the same concerned expression she always wore when I talked about work stress. "Are you hungry? I could make you something, or we could order from that Italian place you like." "Actually, I'm pretty beat. Think I'll just grab a shower and head to bed. You don't have to stay up." "Okay, baby. I'll be up in a few minutes. Just want to finish this episode. I headed upstairs to our bedroom, the same room where I'd watched it with Marcus just 8 hours ago. The bed was made with fresh sheets, navy blue ones I didn't recognize. When I actually bought new sheets. The room smelled like fabric softener and Sarah's perfume, but also something else. Cologne. Not mine. I set my laptop up on the dresser and connected to our home Wi-Fi network. The same secure network I configured with enterprise-grade encryption and monitoring. Every device that connected to our network was logged, every data transfer tracked. Part of my paranoia about home security, but also useful for monitoring unusual activity, like checking if any Meridian financial files have been accessed from our home network. The logs were clear. Marcus's laptop had connected to our Wi-Fi network 17 times in the past 4 months. Always on days when I was traveling, always during business hours when he was supposedly at work. The most recent connection was today at 2:30 p.m., lasting until 4:47 p.m. During that time, someone using his laptop had accessed Meridian's VPN, logged into the client database, and downloaded files from 6 different accounts. 6 major accounts. All of them companies that Sarah's agency had either recently acquired as clients or was currently pitching to. I cross-referenced the download timestamps with the security camera footage. At 3:15 p.m., while Marcus was in my bedroom with my wife, someone was using his laptop in my kitchen to steal proprietary information from my company. The laptop I could see clearly in the security footage, sitting open on my granite countertop, while my life imploded around me. I heard Sarah's footsteps on the stairs, the familiar sound of her evening routine. Bathroom first, then bedroom, then the ritual of checking her phone one last time before sleep. I closed my laptop and started unpacking my travel bag, laying out clothes for tomorrow's work like nothing had changed. How was yoga tonight? I asked as she came into the bedroom. She paused for just a second, her hand on the bathroom doorknob. Oh, it was good. Really good stretch after sitting at a desk all day. Jenny tried this new routine she learned online, nearly killed us all. Jenny. I'd met Jenny twice. Both times at company parties Sarah had dragged me to. Jenny worked in accounting at Sarah's agency, was married to a guy named Dave who sold insurance. According to Sarah's phone records, which I checked during my flight layover, she hadn't texted or called Jenny in 3 weeks. That's great, I said. I'm glad you're keeping up with it. Yeah, you know me, always trying new things. She disappeared into the bathroom, and I heard the sound of her nighttime routine. Water running, teeth brushing, the electric toothbrush she'd insisted on buying because her dentist recommended it. All the normal sounds of a normal evening in a normal marriage. Except nothing was normal anymore, and I was starting to realize it hadn't been normal for months. I lay in bed 20 minutes later, listening to Sarah's breathing slow into sleep, staring at the ceiling I'd painted myself 2 summers ago when we decided to redecorate. She was curled up on her side, the way she always slept, but tonight she seemed farther away than usual, not just physically, but fundamentally distant, like she was already living a different life in her dreams. My phone was on silent, but I could see the screen light up with notifications, work emails, probably routine security alerts and system updates. But I didn't check them. Instead, I lay there thinking about tomorrow's confrontation, about the evidence I'd gathered, about the conversation that would end everything. Except I realized I wasn't planning to confront them. Not yet. In cybersecurity, you don't alert the attacker that you've discovered the breach. You monitor, you document, you gather evidence. You build an airtight case before you make your move. Because once the attacker knows they've been detected, they change tactics, cover their tracks, destroy evidence. Sarah and Marcus thought they were operating undetected. They had no idea that every move they made was being recorded, analyzed, and documented. They thought they were smart, careful, sophisticated. They had no idea they were dealing with someone whose job was literally catching people who thought they were too smart to get caught. I closed my eyes and started planning. Not revenge, not confrontation, not emotional destruction. Strategy. Pure, methodical, professional strategy. The same approach I used to neutralize security threats at work. Identify the full scope of the breach, gather comprehensive evidence, coordinate with appropriate authorities, Execute response protocol. By the time I fell asleep, I had a plan that would expose not just the affair, but the corporate espionage, a plan that would protect Meridian Financial's clients and preserve the integrity of our security systems, a plan that would ensure appropriate consequences for everyone involved. Sarah and Marcus thought they were playing a game where only they knew the rules. They had no idea they were about to discover what happens when you try to outsmart someone who wrote the rule book. I woke up at 5:47 a.m., same as always. Sarah was still asleep, her phone charging on the nightstand, occasional buzzes from what I assumed were morning notifications. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and headed downstairs to the kitchen. Coffee first, then strategy. While the coffee brewed, I opened my encrypted files and began building what we call a threat assessment report. In corporate security, you document everything before you act. Timeline of events, evidence collected, potential damage assessment, recommended response protocols. I'd done hundreds of these for Meridian Financial. This one was personal, but the methodology remained the same. Timeline. Affair began approximately 4 months ago. Corporate data access violations began 3 months ago. Pattern established. Marcus accesses restricted files on days he visits my house. Sarah's agency acquires new clients whose confidential information Marcus has accessed. Total potential data breach. 6 major corporate accounts. Estimated combined value of $12 million in annual revenue. Evidence collected. 47 hours of security footage, network access logs, unauthorized file downloads, correlation between data access and new client acquisitions, all stored on encrypted drives with timestamps and metadata intact. Legally admissible, professionally documented, absolutely bulletproof. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Feeling much better today. See you at the office. Thanks again for covering yesterday. I replied, no problem. See you at the team meeting. The team meeting. Every Wednesday at 9 a.m., our entire IT security department reviewed the previous week's incidents and planned upcoming projects. This week's agenda included a presentation I'd been preparing for months. New protocols for monitoring unauthorized data access. Perfect timing. Sarah came downstairs at 7:15, dressed for work in the navy blazer I bought her for her birthday last year. She looked refreshed, energetic, like someone who was excited about her day, or someone who was excited about her afternoon plans. You're up early, she said, pouring herself coffee from the pot I'd made. Couldn't sleep. Big presentation today about security protocols. That sounds important. She kissed my cheek, the same casual goodbye kiss she'd given me thousands of times. What kind of protocols? Insider threat detection. Ways to catch employees who abuse their system access. She paused with her coffee mug halfway to her lips. That sounds technical. It is, but necessary. You'd be surprised how often people think they can get away with things just because they have legitimate access to systems. She took a sip of coffee, looking out the kitchen window. Well, good luck with it. Thanks. Hey, what time is your yoga class tonight? Oh, I think I'm going to skip tonight. Long day ahead, probably just come home and relax. Interesting. Marcus had requested a half day off, citing a dentist appointment at 2 p.m. His calendar was open after that, and according to his request form, he'd be leaving the office at 1:30. Sarah's yoga class excuse was no longer needed. I kissed her goodbye and watched her drive away in her white Camry, then immediately opened my laptop and accessed Meridian's employee scheduling system. Marcus's time-off request was approved by our supervisor, Derek, who had no reason to question it. But I had access to a different system, one that tracked the real-time usage of employee badge access. Marcus's badge hadn't accessed any dentist office building. In fact, his badge had never accessed any medical facilities, according to the historical data I pulled up. More importantly, I noticed something else in the badge access logs. Last Friday, Marcus had stayed late at the office until 8:47 p.m. According to security logs, he'd accessed a server room during that time. The server room that housed our backup drives and archived client data. Data that required physical access to copy to external devices. I grabbed my travel mug and headed to work, but first I made a detour. Marcus lived in the Riverside Apartments, a complex about 15 minutes from the office. I drove to the parking lot, noting his blue Explorer in its assigned space. Then I parked across the street and waited. At 8:23 a.m., Marcus emerged from his apartment building. But he wasn't alone. A woman walked out with him, someone I'd never seen before. Mid-30s, professional attire, carrying a laptop bag with a logo I recognized. Creative Solutions Group, Sarah's agency. They stood by his car for several minutes, talking intently. She handed him a manila envelope, then got into a silver BMW parked nearby. I took photos with my phone, zoomed in on the license plate, then followed the BMW at a distance. It led directly to the office building that housed Creative Solutions Group. The woman wasn't Sarah. This was someone else entirely. Someone from Sarah's agency who was directly coordinating with Marcus. This wasn't just an affair that had led to information sharing. This was an organized operation involving multiple people at Sarah's company. I arrived at Meridian Financial at 8:45 a.m. and went straight to my office. I had 15 minutes before the team meeting, 15 minutes to set everything in motion. I opened my secure workstation and began uploading the evidence files to our internal investigation system. Every piece of documentation, every security log, every timeline correlation. But I didn't submit the formal report yet. That would come later, at exactly the right moment. The team meeting started on schedule. 8 people around the conference table, including Marcus, who looked perfectly normal, alert, engaged, asking relevant questions about our ongoing projects. If I didn't know what I knew, I'd still consider him one of our most promising junior analysts. "John, you're up," Derek said, gesturing to the presentation screen. "Walk us through these new insider threat protocols." I connected my laptop to the projector and opened my presentation. Today we're going to discuss a critical vulnerability in our security posture. Authorized users who abuse their legitimate access to compromise sensitive data. I clicked to the first slide, which showed statistics about insider threats in financial services companies. 85% of data breaches involve internal actors who use their legitimate credentials to access information they shouldn't have. Marcus was taking notes, nodding along like this was just another educational session. He had no idea that every slide in my presentation was building the case against him. Let's look at a hypothetical scenario. I continued, clicking to the next slide. Employee A has legitimate access to client databases. Employee A begins accessing files outside their normal work scope. Employee A downloads information to personal devices. Employee A shares this information with external parties who use it for competitive advantage. I watched Marcus's pen stop moving. His eyes were fixed on the screen, but his body language had shifted. Shoulders tense, jaw tight. The key to detecting this type of breach is pattern recognition. I continued. Unusual access times. Files accessed outside normal job requirements. Correlation between data access and external events. I clicked to the next slide, which showed a sample audit log. Not Marcus's actual log, but one that looked suspiciously similar. For example, if an employee consistently accesses high-value client files on days when they're supposed to be out sick, that would trigger our monitoring systems. Marcus's pen had stopped moving entirely. I could see sweat forming on his forehead, despite the conference room's air conditioning. Questions so far? I asked the room. "Yeah," said Janet from Network Security. "How do we implement this kind of monitoring without seeming like we don't trust our own people?" Great question. The key is automated monitoring with human review. The system flags unusual patterns, but experienced analysts review them to determine if there's legitimate business justification or if further investigation is needed. I clicked to the final slide. I'll be implementing these protocols immediately. Any employee whose access patterns trigger alerts will be subject to enhanced monitoring and potential security review. The meeting ended at 9:47 a.m. As people filed out, Marcus approached my desk. "Hey, great presentation," he said, but his voice was strained. "Really thorough stuff about insider threats." "Thanks. It's an area I'm passionate about. You never know who you can trust these days." He forced a laugh. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'm still planning to leave early today for that dentist appointment. Right, the dentist. What time was that again? 2 o'clock. Routine cleaning, but you know how those can run long sometimes. Of course. Take care of your teeth. They're important. He nodded and walked away, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He knew something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. The predator had become the prey, and the trap was closing around him. I waited until 10:30 a.m., then walked to Derek's office. As our department supervisor, Derek needed to be informed about potential security violations before I escalated to corporate security and legal. Got a minute, Derek? I need to discuss a sensitive security matter. Of course, close the door. I handed him a printed summary of my findings. I've discovered what appears to be unauthorized access to client databases by a member of our team. Derek's face went through several expressions as he read the report. Confusion, concern, then anger. This is serious, John. Are you certain about these findings? Completely certain. I have documented evidence of repeated unauthorized access, data downloads to personal devices, and correlation with external competitive intelligence gathering. Jesus, who are we talking about here? Marcus Chun. Derek leaned back in his chair. Marcus? But he's one of our best junior analysts. You recommended him for his last promotion. I know. That's what makes this particularly concerning. He used the trust and access I gave him to compromise our security. What's your recommendation? Immediate suspension pending full investigation. Revocation of all system access. Coordination with legal and potentially law enforcement. Derek nodded slowly. Okay, I need to escalate this to corporate security immediately. Can you brief them this afternoon? Absolutely. But Derek, there's something else. I believe Marcus may be planning to access systems again today. He's leaving early, supposedly for a dentist appointment, but I think he's planning another data extraction. What do you want to do? Let him think everything is normal. Monitor his access in real time. Catch him in the act if he attempts to breach security today. Derek picked up his phone. I'm calling corporate security now. This is beyond our department's scope. By 11:30 a.m., I was sitting in a conference room with Derek, our corporate security director Lisa Chong, and legal counsel Michael Torres. I presented the full case. Timeline, evidence, network logs, everything. They listened in silence, occasionally asking clarifying questions, taking notes on legal pads. This is extensive, Lisa said when I finished, and the evidence is solid. But you said you believe he might attempt another breach today? Based on his pattern and his early departure request, yes. I recommend we monitor his system access and see if he attempts to log in remotely. And you said there's potential coordination with an external marketing agency? Creative Solutions Group. They've acquired several clients whose confidential information Marcus accessed without authorization. The timing correlation is too precise to be coincidental. Michael Torres looked up from his notes. If this involves corporate espionage and theft of client data, we're looking at potential federal crimes. Wire fraud, computer fraud, possibly RICO violations if there's an organized conspiracy. What's our next step? Derek asked. We monitor today's activity. Lisa decided. If Marcus attempts unauthorized access, we document it and coordinate with FBI's Cybercrimes Division. This is big enough to warrant federal involvement. I returned to my desk at 12:15 p.m. and opened the real-time monitoring dashboard. Marcus's workstation was active, but he was only accessing files within his normal scope. Email, project management tools, routine client maintenance. Nothing unusual. At 1:33 p.m., Marcus logged off his workstation and left the building. I watched him walk to his car through the security cameras in our parking garage. He looked nervous, checking his phone repeatedly, glancing around like he thought he was being watched. He was. At 2:47 p.m., my monitoring system lit up with alerts. Someone was accessing Meridian's VPN using Marcus's credentials, but from an IP address I recognized, my home network. I immediately called Lisa Chong. He's logging in remotely from an unauthorized location. I reported. Same IP address as previous breaches. Document everything. We're coordinating with FBI cybercrimes now. I watched the real-time logs as Marcus navigated through our client database. He accessed Henderson and Associates files, downloaded pricing strategies and client contact lists. Then Morrison Financial Group, downloading marketing budgets and competitive analysis reports. Finally, Blackstone Industries, accessing their complete account history and financial projections. Each download was automatically logged with timestamps, file names, and destination locations. Everything being copied to external storage devices while he sat in my kitchen, probably on the same laptop I'd seen in yesterday's security footage. At 3:23 p.m., my phone rang. Sarah, hey, honey, I'm going to be late tonight. Emergency client meeting came up. Probably won't be home until after 8. No problem. Work emergency. Yeah, big presentation tomorrow. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. Her emergency client meeting was happening in my house with stolen data from my company. The presentation tomorrow was probably to another prospective client, using intelligence gathered through corporate espionage. I understand. See you when you get home. At 4:15 p.m., Marcus logged off the VPN and disconnected from our network. The final tally: 12 confidential files downloaded, 3 client accounts compromised, total data theft spanning 847 pages of proprietary information, all of it documented, time-stamped, and legally admissible. Lisa Chong called at 4:30 p.m. FBI Cyber Crimes wants to meet with you first thing tomorrow morning. They're treating this as a federal case now. Can you be at their field office at 8 a.m.? Absolutely. John, I want you to know that your work on this investigation has been exceptional. The documentation you provided is exactly what federal prosecutors need to build a solid case. That evening, I drove home, knowing it would be the last normal evening of my marriage. Sarah's car was in the driveway, lights on in the kitchen. When I walked in, she was at the stove making dinner, humming along to music from her phone. She looked up and smiled, the same warm greeting I'd received thousands of times. Hey, how was your day? Productive. Very productive. How was your emergency client meeting? Oh, lots of preparation still to do, but I think we're on the right track. We ate dinner together, talking about mundane things. Her sister's upcoming wedding, the neighbor's new fence, whether we should finally replace the washing machine that had been making weird noises. Normal married couple conversation, the kind we'd had throughout 8 years of marriage. If you didn't know what was really happening, you'd think we were just another suburban couple sharing our day. After dinner, Sarah went upstairs to shower. I sat in the living room, looking around at the life we'd built together. Wedding photos on the mantle, vacation souvenirs on the bookshelf, the throw pillows she'd insisted on buying even though I thought they were impractical. All of it about to be evidence in a federal investigation. My phone buzzed with text from Marcus. Thanks for being understanding about the dentist appointment. Everything went smoothly. I replied, glad to hear it. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, FBI briefing at 8 a.m., corporate security meeting at 10 a.m., then back to the office for what would probably be Marcus's last day at Meridian Financial. I'd be wearing a wire, documenting his statements, gathering final evidence for federal prosecutors. Sarah came downstairs in her pajamas, hair wet from the shower, carrying her laptop. Just need to finish up some work for tomorrow's presentation, she said, settling onto the couch next to me. I watched her open files I recognized from Marcus's downloads earlier that day. Henderson and Associates marketing data, reorganized and formatted for a presentation to their competitor. She was working late. All right, working late to profit from stolen corporate intelligence. Looks like important stuff, I said. Yeah, if we land this client, it could be huge for the agency. Really huge. She had no idea how huge the consequences were about to be. At 11 p.m., I excused myself and went upstairs. I had an early morning. I told her important meetings. She kissed me goodnight, the same casual affection we'd shared for years, and went back to her laptop. I lay in bed, listening to her typing downstairs, organizing stolen data into competitive proposals. In 12 hours, federal agents would be reviewing the evidence I collected. In 24 hours, Marcus would be suspended and probably arrested. In 48 hours, Sarah's agency would be under federal investigation for corporate espionage. Neither of them knew what was coming. They thought they were smart, careful, sophisticated. They had no idea they'd been caught by someone whose job was catching people who thought they were too smart to get caught. I closed my eyes and prepared for tomorrow, the day when everything would change, when justice would be served, and when the consequences of their choices would finally catch up with them. In cybersecurity, we have a saying, the system always wins. People think they can outsmart the system, find the loopholes, exploit the vulnerabilities. But eventually, the system adapts, learns, and responds. Tomorrow, Sarah and Marcus would discover what happens when you try to hack someone who built the security protocols. They were about to learn that the quiet guy in the corner, the one they thought was too trusting and too focused on his work to notice what was happening, had been building a case against them from day one. They were about to discover that their perfectly planned crime had been perfectly documented by someone who never made emotional decisions, only strategic ones. Tomorrow will be very interesting indeed.